Igor, thanks for joining me. I appreciate your time today. What's your sense of what agencies should do next, maybe the next 2 or 3 steps, to really integrate natural language processing into the business practices, the business processes that they're doing now?
Right. So it's a brave new time in terms of intersecting with AI and knowledge management. All of them are sitting on a treasure trove of knowledge, whether it's in healthcare, whether it's in defense, whether it's in civilian services. And I think as they've been curating and tending to these collections of knowledge, technology has matured up to a point, whether it's the hardware and software, that can ingest that knowledge and transform it into interactivity to support end users, both internal and external to the organization. So they're getting a lot closer to that ability.
I note that you use the word treasure trove of knowledge and not of data. Is there a difference?
Yeah, knowledge turns kinetic and is usable, right? Because we all need it for decision advantage. And so content that's just sitting there, reminds me of that last scene in Indiana Jones where it gets put in a crate and nobody ever sees it before. Right. So I'd rather figure out how to reduce that distance between an end user and that knowledge so that they can go ahead and take the best decisions possible. If you think about how anybody wins, whether it's a workflow or the larger strategic aims that they have, their biggest adversary is time.
So I love that analogy of that movie because it strikes me then that the challenge is not just to get whatever's in that warehouse out of that warehouse, it's to bust the crate open, get what's in the crate out of it, and do something with that individually, right? That's kind of the extension of what you're talking about, it sounds like.
That's right, yeah. We all need to know something before we can do something. And I think the reason why I've always been excited with natural language, the last company that I founded ended up becoming Alexa. It was Amazon's first AI-related acquisition. It was all about essentially creating these natural interfaces that really would sit in front of the totality of the web, right? And how do you democratize access to all of that knowledge and make it so it's only a second away? Now imagine that all over our bureaucracies. I mean, the amount of opportunity of taking something that usually took hours to discover and turn it into a couple seconds is fantastic.
Given that you were on the edge of what happened with that, and that is now very commonly used technology in people's hands in both the public sector and in their private lives, what should leaders in government be thinking about and preparing for today the way that they, in hindsight, should have been thinking about and preparing for natural language processing 2 years ago or 5 years ago?
Right. So you have to think of the early iPhone. The early iPhone wasn't usable in any sort of business context. It didn't have, mobile device management. It didn't have access to VPNs and things like that. So it took a number of years before those supporting technologies to secure those environments happened, so that they were consumable in more serious pursuits. The same thing is happening with AI. We're catching our own football. Many of these things that as Alexa and Siri required a level of hardening where they can tap into existing enterprise software stacks, existing content like Office files and things of that sort. Now they're able to transform that content into interactivity to perform searches, trigger workflows, and eventually drive automation. And I think in some cases they were waiting for the industry to catch up and put the necessary access controls, operate at a scale where you can essentially deliver those services with energy efficiency, and then have the security posture, to make sure the right people are seeing the right information.
What should an organization like a federal agency be doing now to prepare for that scenario that you just described?
I think from that, I would say trials. Do your pilots, do your trials, get familiar with that information, get briefed on AI literacy, understand the intersection of their possibilities and the executive order in terms of what the expectations are going to be to properly safeguard this knowledge. But practically speaking, with this style of technology, they can be marching this stuff into production well before the end of the year. And frankly speaking, it's incumbent for us as an AI industry to give them a 5+ year advantage on other nation states as fast as possible.
It's interesting to me that you didn't say anything at all about infrastructure or technological requirements. It's all acquiring knowledge on a personal level and not on a technological or professional level, is what it sounds.
They'll make practical decisions on whether a particular use case or service needs to be on cloud, or whether it has to be repatriated on on-premises servers, or even more specifically on edge devices that may be disconnected from networks. Those are just the practical matters of the requirements in terms of where they have to consume the application. But one of the things that I tell them is you should pick a use case that you have to deliver across the totality of your agency. Now, why do you want to do that? In order to get more shots on goal. You want the interns to access it. You want rank and file to access it. It shouldn't be just something for the SCSs and the C-suite, because when you open up the aperture of use, that's when you end up discovering the true use cases that will benefit the organization. And I would say, get to those use cases as fast as you can, and they may even involve unclassified use cases. It could be your cafeteria menus, policies, procedures, regulatory information that they all need to know. Once you get people comfortable, and again, they start becoming more AI literate, that's when they'll go orthogonal and bring you the real meaty stuff.
Yeah, it strikes me the potential drawback to that in an organization like a federal agency is the hesitation to make something widely available because we're afraid somebody might break it. It sounds like that's kind of what you want people to do, to see where the potential fissures might be in order to be able to harden something. Am I on the right track?
Yeah, you are. I received an apology from an SCS once and said, hey, I know we're a little bit backwards with our adoption on technology. And I'm like, you're actually not backwards. The reason why your workflows exist the way that they are is because you guys are subject matter experts in your given field. The only issue is, as Chambers, the former CEO of Cisco, said, it's when you do the right thing too long is when you get in trouble. So you haven't been doing the wrong thing. Obviously, you have proper checks and balances and governance, and you have to do things by the book. But what you need to do is ensure and start pressure testing to make sure to say, hey, is there a better way of doing the things that we've already been doing? And with these cognitive technologies, we're on the cusp of reimagining a lot of these use cases.
Igor, it's great to talk to you. Thanks very much for your time today.
Thanks for having me.